Doobie-da-ba-ba-ba. 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 Sperm Sisters.
This is a story about sisters, just not the kind that you're expecting.
3 years ago, we were strangers, living separate lives.
Now we know we're biological sisters, connected by the same sperm donor.
And that's just the beginning.
This podcast dives headfirst into the how, the why, and the uncomfortable questions no one seems to want to answer.
Uncovering secrets the medical world would rather keep buried. How many donor-conceived people are there really?
No one can give a straight answer. Not the clinics, not the system, no one.
So, how many siblings could be walking past us every day without a clue?
It's messy, it's shocking. At times, it's almost impossible to believe.
And somehow, it's also really funny.
Come with us as we dig deeper, ask the uncomfortable questions, and laugh our way through the chaos of discovering who we really are and just how many of us there might be.
Coming up on this week's episode of Sperm Sisters. We're back with part 2 of our chat with Harriet, friend of the podcast and master of medical ethics.
In one case, the man died, but the grandma was like, no, my son wanted a child, I will find a surrogate. And there was a conflict between the daughter and mother. Law and medical ethics is fucking great.
Yeah.
Terrible for those people.
And we dip into the Sperm Sisters Mailbag.
On the count of 3, you have to name your favourite crisp. Let's see the similarities. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, fuck.
We're not the same sperms.
And now, let's get back to Harriet.
Harriet, at the start of this conversation, you started to touch base on the ethical considerations for somebody who wants to donate, whether that be sperm or an egg, etc. And I just want to talk about this in a little bit more detail because somebody quite close to me, well, someone who's very dear to me, wants to donate their eggs. However, their youngest has Down syndrome. And so she sadly has therefore been rejected from being able to donate her eggs. And yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this.
What do you guys think should and shouldn't be screened for when you are screening potential donors?
I think people should have the choice to decide what's being screened for.
Like if you did a genetic test when you get pregnant to determine how you would feel about raising children with different inherited illnesses.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gemma?
I don't think that you can trust a donor to know their own genetic background.
Yeah.
And I think that every single donor should be screened for genetic illnesses because they might actually benefit from it themselves anyway. But if you think about how many, what the percentages of what's inherited and how easily different illnesses can be passed on, there's different ratios. For example, like bowel cancer is the chances of that coming down the family line is quite high. So, for example, if one of the donor's grandparents, which makes up 25% of their donor's DNA, if they have like a 25% chance from one of their grandparents that they have a hereditary condition, then I think that is a red buzzer time. Don't go through to the next round. No golden buzzer for you, sir. Step to one side. Pass the pot.
I'm loving this analogy for like Britain's Got Talent. Like, oh, he's hot, golden buzzer. What about the screening?
Amanda Holden's there like, yeah, you're my favourite.
Oh, sorry, that really tickled me.
It's just an insight into how my mind works, probably. But because I just think that child then has, 12.5. They have 12.5% inheritance from that great-grandparent who had that genetic gene. I don't know if that's how it works. It probably depends on what the illness is, like the likelihood of it being passed on. Like it is a bit of a lottery. But if we are just, if we are going by just numbers, and there's that baseline number of 55 years to freeze sperm or an embryo, whatever, then say, 12.5% chance from that great grandparent. Sorry.
You are actually very closely on the right track. We will discuss it in a second, but I want to give Helen
Make me a
chance
medical
as well.
professional.
You've been very on it with the reflections on this. I think, you've got a legislator's mind.
Oh, that's such a nice compliment.
Yeah, isn't it?
So, British Fertility Society last month issued new guidance on genetic testing and gamete donation. So this is pretty hot off the press. And as well as doing the kind of STI tests and the things for the safety, there are also genetic testing. But interestingly, there are different sets of genetic testing, and also in the US. So it's been a bit imported. There's something called the ECS, which is the expanded carrier screening. But what they found, and this really links to what Gemma was saying earlier, is that what do you do when you've got a recessive gene? And so what you were describing was a recessive gene from a grandparent that gives you something like a 25% chance. And very linked to what you said, there are some that will cause issues and that they should be screened out. But this is a fun fact. Basically, everybody carries about 3 to 7 recessive genes that could cause an issue. And so in the general population, you wouldn't screen your partner. You wouldn't do a genetic screening of your partner before having a child. So it's interesting to put a higher rate or a higher risk threshold on donor conception. Now, I understand, because obviously if you're doing donor conception, you're going into it acknowledging that there are some additional risks and some unknowns, but they are sometimes quite equivalent to what you would do with a partner. Your partner might not know their background. They might also be donor conceived. They might be adopted. There might be lots of things. They might just not know who one of their parents are. So you'd be going into I was going to say reproduction.
It is.
Very, very formal, without having these considerations. So it's interesting to put a higher rate on a donor, basically.
Yeah,
Sorry,
like
you
a
can tell I'm
higher-
getting a bit tired, can't you?
No, I know.
No.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. To put a higher emphasis on it just for the donor community.
Yeah.
Because sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, they're charging these people out the blooming nose, aren't they? So, of course, they're going to say, oh, just let you know, you might get, an extra head, or you might get that third nipple gene or whatever, because they've paid so much money, and maybe the couple have bought the add-on, and then they've bought this and that, and then, they've got their shopping list of things that they want now. Is there not just like a bog standard list of things that people need to be concerned about?
We're creating one through this podcast.
But I get what Harriet's trying to say, because Harriet's saying that then should that not just apply to everybody, regardless of if it's someone created from donor conception? Because you pretty much go into things blind anyway. Like, you obviously don't know everything, do you? People having one night stands don't know everything.
Yeah. And also a recessive gene, if you aren't a carrier as well, then although your child might be a carrier, that doesn't necessarily mean that it might impact their children. It's good to know, but should you be screening people out for recessive genes? Similarly, if they have a history of mental health, I think we've shifted some of our societal views. What's the extent to that mental health? Again, is it just about being more aware of things that you might need to consider in future, rather than actually screening donors out? Because, if my mum and dad had gone to the clinic and donated, that my mum wouldn't be eligible and I'm still, do you know what I mean? It's that kind of comparison of like in everyday life. I would also say that the couples going to get the donated gamete aren't being screened to the same extent. So it's again interesting that we've shifted the standard, haven't we? Because if you're not going to be forced to get all of these predisposition genetic tests in order to go and ask for it, you're putting a really high standard on your donor that you're not yourself. If you think that there's a comparison there, you're effectively saying that some people shouldn't have children.
Yeah.
We're not saying that.
No, sorry, we're not. But
No one on this podcast right now is saying that.
Well, we've kind of accidentally inferred it then.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're putting such a high emphasis on donors, but why haven't they done this? Why haven't they done this?
Why aren't they getting it? Yeah.
Yeah. Why hasn't everybody who's had a child?
But this depends on what you're comparing it to. Like, I do think that if you're intentionally going to get a gamete, then yeah, you're going to want a bit of there are things. So if a child isn't capable of being born, yes, of course we should be screening that out, because that's not in anyone's best interests. So I do understand a level of screening that would be enhanced compared to what you might know just on the street meeting someone. But I do think it says a lot about what our society views in terms of disability, in terms of mental health. Like, a lot of these are assumptions about someone's life, because you've got to remember, as soon as you screen someone out, that person doesn't exist.
This is so interesting.
I think there is something inherent about everybody wanting to say, no, we should have the best interests of that conceived child at all times. And I do agree we should have the best interests. But it is interesting to put higher standards on what we anticipate. And also, I think there is a bit of an existence versus non-existence thing there of what do we value in a person? How are we doing that through the screening?
Totally.
I feel like I've accidentally blown Gemma's mind.
Yeah.
Just looking into the middle distance.
I was just thinking about whether just the whole thing about deciding whether someone should be born or not.
You're still on that.
An existential crisis.
I am a great person to get drunk and ask these questions too.
Yeah.
This is why when Tasha said, I didn't really know much about this before, I was like, I got drunk at uni 90% of the time and brought up half of these debates. Because there is one thing as well in this bit that we haven't touched on that I really want to get into, and it's about the ethics of paying donors, which I think is, again,
like a whole other ballpark. Harriet, note that down as
as
we're under. Yeah, I know, but as something specific that we want to go for under number 4, because we still need to go through death.
Yeah, I also put dead donors are controversial as well, because sometimes grandparents want to use gametes and things like that, and then partners will be like, no. It's a very interesting area that we can unpick.
Grandparents?
Not for themselves. Say, they just want a grandchild. So if one of the examples is an embryo, this went to court. Embryo was fertilized because embryos have a better chance of resulting in a live birth than sperm or eggs frozen separately. So a lot of people, particularly if you're doing kind of clinical treatment, or if you're worried about your chances, if they are in a committed relationship, will often choose an embryo instead. But sometimes those relationships then break up after treatment, and then you've got quite complex issues. So I think in one case, the man died, there was an embryo, the woman was like, actually, no, I don't want to use this because he's gone. But the grandma was like, no, my son wanted a child. I'm going to do everything in my power to get him this child. I will find a surrogate and he will have a child. And there was a conflict between the daughter and mother. Law of medical ethics is fucking great.
Yeah.
Terrible for those people, but really interesting. Did you know that a donor can choose to only give gametes after their death?
Why would you do that?
So say that you're doing it. So a lot of people donate because they're doing fertility treatments themselves. Say you're doing IVF. Sometimes you'll get a discount for donating embryos or gametes. So sometimes people do that.
No way.
Also for research as well. So you don't have to give them. You can also do it for research, which I think is actually incredibly noble. But most people that donate usually have experience of infertility with a partner or a close family or relative and want to do it altruistically because they've seen what their family have gone through. Also, a lot of gay men go through donations and then think, oh, actually I've met a lot of people that couldn't conceive through this process and I would actually like to give back. And so you tend to get people that are already in the process that can see how hard it is for others and go, actually, if I'm getting what I want out of this, I'll do it. But then because they've done it for that reason, they sometimes don't want to be as involved in that child's life, which I know it like controversial, but I think they're doing it for their reason, and then they're doing that as a kind of altruistic thing, and they don't want those things to overlap. That's my whistle stop tour. Totally knew that this was going to take more than like 10 days.
Yeah. Definitely.
Honestly.
There's like all of that though, Harriet. I think that's like another 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I've commandeered the podcast. It's now Harriet and Spurt.
So it's actually just like, it's all of series 2.
I hope you like Harriet.
Yeah. I just think this is so fucking fascinating.
Yeah, it's
like,
unbelievable.
It is.
yeah.
Harriet,
And
thank
really
you so
good.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Because I think this is so good that it's like completely, it's definitely challenging my perspective on things, because there's so much that I haven't even given any thought to whatsoever, because I'm only taking it from like my individual perspective. There's stuff that I haven't thought about at all.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to come
same.
across that because I think those individual perspectives are vital. I just think there are like it's interesting to test them and push them and think about like what alternatives might be.
Yeah, and,
But I
and
don't want it to
why.
come across that I'm critiquing individual experience as well. So if
That's
at any
not what
point
it
you feel
is.
like
Oh,
that's
no,
what
it's
comes
not.
across,
No,
in the
that's not
podcast,
what it
please
is
No,
at
don't.
all.
that's not it.
No. It's very easy to only see things from your own point of view. And I think when you're a donor conceived person, especially from our Wild West era, it's very hard. I find it hard to imagine, for example, someone in the armed forces would want to freeze their sperm, or all of these different reasons. I hadn't considered any of that before, probably because I'm so consumed with working out what the hell the law and ethics is being a donor conceived person when there were no regulations. So I find it fascinating from that point of view, and hopefully it's going to resonate with a lot of other people, because they find it crazy imagining what it's like being in our shoes. We didn't sign off from that Harriet episode at all, but I think it probably just sums up the relationship that we've now got with Harriet. So I can't imagine what it must be like interviewing one of your best mates, Nat, who knows so much about the world.
Yeah, so smart.
Like,
Yeah.
real medical ethicist Harriet Hall. What an absolute superstar. I've had so many messages as well from people just saying how fantastic that episode was. So I'm really excited for people to have now listened to this second episode with her. And I think it's safe to say plenty more to come.
Oh,
I hope so.
100%. Because she had pages and pages more notes.
Oh,
And I love it.
And she messaged me, like, I think it was yesterday, saying that we have reignited her love affair with medical ethics. And I just thought that was so lovely.
oh,
That's very
does
cute.
she not use it now? Because I feel like she could use that superpower for good.
Well, absolutely. And I think she does to a certain extent. But I think just having these conversations have reignited something great within her.
She told me at the wedding when we were sat down, she was like, do you know what? When I get drunk, that's when I get into the ethical side of everything.
Yeah.
She's like, that's when I want to debate.
Anything. Of anything.
I think we should get her a job at the HFEA, and that's our in.
I think that she would absolutely love that.
Let's make it happen.
I think that's her dream.
What would we want her to
Showcase
do, though? Be like a mole on the inside for us?
Yeah.
No, she should just run it.
Yeah, run the entire thing.
Queen of the HFEA. If she was queen of the HFEA, she'd be really busy right now, though, wouldn't she? Because there's so
she
much going
absolutely-
on in the world of donor conception and questionable ethics. In fact, we should get her on to talk about this news story that broke this week.
Fantastic idea. Absolutely. Well, for those of you that aren't aware, or for those of you that haven't sent it to us yet, because lots of people have sent us this story, The BBC have been investigating some pretty shocking allegations involving families who travelled to northern Cyprus for fertility treatment. And essentially, there are now concerns that some parents may not have been given the sperm or egg donor that they had actually selected. So the investigation now involves at least 30 children, most of them of which are British, and whose families are now questioning whether the correct donor was used.
And on top of that, what's really interesting is how some of this has come to light. It's all happening through commercial DNA testing, which is obviously how we found out ourselves. But the fact that it's still happening in this day and age is mad. Some families became suspicious after their DNA test showed that their children's genetic ancestry didn't seem to match the donor profiles that they'd originally been given. So this isn't just about things like hair color, eye color, or appearance. The parents had been given information about their donor's ancestry, characteristics, and medical history. So potentially there's so much more at stake.
Yeah.
And I think there's one case in particular that really stood out to us. Parents had deliberately chosen what they believed was the same sperm donor for their children because they wanted them to have that biological connection. But obviously, as we said, they did some DNA testing later, which then suggested that the children weren't actually biological half siblings. And it's also been reported that Cryos International, the major sperm bank that they used, stopped supplying one of the clinics involved back in 2016 because of concerns about its practice.
And it's just an important caveat, really, before we get into what we think about all of this, that these are allegations and they're being investigated. We don't know exactly what happened in every single individual case that we've just mentioned, but there are so many things in this story that immediately jumped out at us as donor-conceived people, particularly after some of the conversations we've already had on this podcast about DNA testing, donor anonymity, sibling relationships, and the ethics of donor conception. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I read it, sadly, I wasn't all that surprised that this article had come out. I mean, I know that actually there had been a few articles with very similar stories that have just been given sort of mainstream media spotlight. But yeah, it's so sad that this seems to be becoming a regular news story.
Yeah, because I just think that it's ridiculous that, oh, here she is, here's the rage. The fact that
I missed her.
I missed that. It's ridiculous because just a couple of months ago we were talking to the BBC about the Passata Passata. Do you remember that episode? That was only like 10 episodes ago. So what's that, a couple of months ago? Where people could buy sperm online and it's delivered to their house, or they go somewhere else and get it that's not licensed or legal in the eyes of the HFEA. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're supposed to go to these places for the best medical care, for that safety. They were trying to be above board and sensible. And of course, it costs an absolute bloody fortune to go through this. And it still costs a fortune to go to Cyprus. This stuff ain't free or cheap. And just imagine being that let down. Let down. And it's a really difficult position to be in because it's a bit like, I bet you some morons have said to them, well, you got your kids anyway, you know.
Oh, totally. Someone will say, that's the same thing when they're like, well, it's still your dad when you say about this. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you've totally missed everything I've said.
Yeah.
If I was being like, okay, I'm going to play the devil's advocate now. But what I want to say is, obviously, I think it's devastatingly upsetting for the families who've paid money. And it's a really delicate subject to talk about. Now I'm going to be undelicate about it, right? You look at people who are going to get like hair transplants or get their teeth done. You can go and have it done in the UK and it's all regulated. If something goes wrong, they'll fix it or you'll get compensation. I know you can't fix parentage, but there's so much more accountability happening and you're paying for that medical accountability. If you go to Turkey, you're paying cash a lot of the time, which is mental anyway, but that's a different thing. But then when you come back and your teeth are fucked, like, you're not going back to Turkey, are you? They've washed their hands with you. There's no record of it whatsoever. And then you've got to have it fixed here, which you can. But by doing something like this, which is actually unfixable in the first place, like, I just think it's something so serious. I know people can't go back in time now and change what's happened. They were promised the world, and it's not their fault that they were just barefaced lied to. But now people know that. I just think surely I would really hope that then that clinic or any other clinics that are similar aren't going to be getting any repeat business. But unfortunately, I think they will. And as a donor conceived person, I find that absolutely gutting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit too ranty?
No.
It's
It's
think that,
honest.
do you know something that this did make me think about though? I wish I'd shared it with you both, but there was, I think it also was, oh no, I don't think it was BBC. I think it was just somebody that popped up on our sort of Instagram rhythm of Sperm Sisters, but algorithm, not rhythm. But basically, it was but it was a father who created a really lovely reel with his son on his shoulders, and it was like,
love
Yeah,
him.
I saw that.
yeah, and he had said the reel was basically him saying, like, when we decided to go down the route of a donor, I was always really worried about the connection that I would have with my child, but like he's now like, I had nothing to worry about, like, we're best friends. Like, it's a really beautiful love story that he kind of shares with about his son, like, through Instagram. But I think something that for me was really at the forefront of my mind when I was reading this article was for the parents who, you know, so strongly felt that they wanted both of their children to have that biological connection. And I think that now really does turn their world upside down, now having to live a life, if they've still got young children, what might this end up their relationship looking like that when they like move into adulthood? And I think that is so sad. I mean, hopefully it doesn't change anything, you know, and it shouldn't, but I'm sure that is a fear that the parents now must carry with them, that they shouldn't have to.
So we've come so far in our ethical thinking and our morals about donor conception and forward planning, like many things that Harriet picked up on, you know, the fact that people freeze their sperm and eggs for different reasons, yeah, and then thinking, well, it would be nice if they had a sibling from the same person, you know, rather than back in the day when us lot were created, you know, willy-nilly, without a paper trace. But it's just really sad that not everyone's morals and ethics have caught up. And unfortunately, it just comes down to financial greed, doesn't it? Because it's medical malpractice. It's not complete negligence. It's not because we don't know enough about the importance of the family structure and the emotional and mental impact that fuck ups like this can have, because it's not a whoopsie daisy. It's a
barefaced lie.
It's a barefaced lie. And it is heartbreaking, and no amount of apologies, I think, would ever make up for it.
No, and I do also want to touch on that. My analogy before, pretty insensitive, but what I think is also difficult is, even though I don't think people should be going to clinics like that are not regulated and there's a reason that they're cheaper, it's a difficult one, because it's like, well, they're priced out of having it properly done in the UK. And I would be even more annoyed if someone had gone down the Facebook donation sperm thing. So then it's like, well, what do I want them to do? And as a donor conceived person, I don't actually know. I think it just needs far more funding in this country, obviously.
Unfortunately, it's just another massive wake-up call that we need an international register. But as
we need Harriet at the HFEA.
Oh man, don't we?
But I don't think there's ever going to be one. There's never going to be an international register. I think it would have happened by now. So I think we just have to keep on making this podcast and just keep on showing the world that, yeah, medical malpractice happens, fuck ups happen, life is shit sometimes, but good can come from it. So keep looking for the silver lining, because if you don't, you're going to cry and crumble, and we ain't got time for that. So
Yeah,
we just hope that this podcast would one day be a useful reference tool for those children who have gone through this scenario. But hopefully this would inspire you to have a bit of hope.
In the words
Sorry, I
of
don't know
Limp
how you can
Bizkit.
follow on from that.
No, I was going to say that's a bit. I was trying to lighten the mood by being like, in the words of Limp Bizkit, keep on rolling, baby.
To finish off the episode today, we wanted to dig into the Sperm Sister Mailbag because we had a message from someone called Chris who sent us an old school WhatsApp written message rather than a voice note, which is fine, by the way, because people can also just message us. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
He
Chris.
has asked us.
Get with it, Chris.
Get with it, Chris. God. So he has asked us simple similarities. We should probably do an episode on this as well. But his one was, on the count of 3, you have to name your favourite crisp. So on the count of 3, let's see the similarities. We say 1, 2, 3. Okay, go.
Just the flavour, not the brand.
The flavour. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Prawn cocktail.
Salt,
Cheese and
vinegar.
onion.
Oh, fuck.
Fuck.
Oh, Chris. Come on, man.
Oh man.
Okay,
Maybe we're a product of not the same. We're not the same sperms.
Maybe this is the future of DNA testing. You just have to say your favourite crisp. Should we do sandwich name? Sandwich.
Your favourite sandwich filler?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Ham and cheese.
Prawn
Tuna and
cocktail.
sweet corn.
Wait, I've got another one.
Okay,
On the count.
yeah.
Okay.
No,
Go
you
on.
go.
On the
No, you
count
go.
of 3, name your favourite chocolate bar that you can get in a meal deal. 1, 2, 3. Twix.
Bounty.
Bounty.
See?
Bounty. What?
Yeah. Coconut.
Shake your coconut. Oh, wow.
That was so much fun.
That was
was
really
fun.
good fun. I loved that.
Thank you very
Thank you very much for
listening.
listening.
Follow us. Follow us on Instagram. Please like, please share, please comment, please follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music. Tell your friends about us. Tell any exec producers that you know about us.
Yes.
Tell all of your agents that you know about us. And continue to follow us on this funny, crazy journey that is Sperm Sisters. We love you all so much. Bye.